Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Matt and Ari video. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe if you have not already. So in this video, I want to sort of give a recap of my trip to Paris. I would like to make it clear that that was literally 5 years ago. I'm sure the city has changed and a lot of things look different to how they were like in 2018. I saw a friend that I've had like literally for 10 years, and I got to meet her family. I did get to stay at her actual place, her family residence. It's a trip that is near and dear to my heart for a lot of reasons. It was not just, sort of a tourist initiative. So, well, as I just said, I went in 2018. I went for a full month. I have to thank that girl so much. We've been friends for so long. She's an incredible person. She did host me at her place, so I did not have to pay, for accommodation. I did actually look at accommodation back then, and I went in August. Okay, so you can just imagine how the prices would have been through the roof at that given moment in Paris. Um, Initially the plan was to maybe stay there for 2 weeks and then go to like an Airbnb for 2 weeks. But once I saw those prices, her mom was kind enough to, just allow me to stay for another 2 weeks, at her place. So just some general background, I guess. She lives close to Disney World in Paris. There is a Disney World in Paris, by the way. She lived not too far from there, so that's kind of end of Paris. And I would have to like take the rail every day, to get into the city center. So that was accommodation. I'm sorry, I can't really give too much of a breakdown of the actual what it's like to stay in Paris. All I can say is that it was too expensive for me to take undertake that bill for a full month. So I did fly into Charles de Gaulle Airport. I'm not really sure if there's more than one airport in Paris, but that is where I landed. Um, because it was close enough to her place, maybe 30 minutes by car. I did take an Uber just in passing. I'm not doing a lot with my makeup, okay? Because typically French girls, they're not too much into makeup. So to be more baked and contoured kind of look, that's more like an American thing, a British thing. But I'm generally not into makeup. So I'm just doing something that I would usually do if I do any kind of makeup at all, which is something very subtle with my lips, just in passing. Um, so oh, and I may as well just get into my outfit of the day very quickly. It's a very light, airy sort of dress. I got this at H&M in Exeter, and I just, it's such a cool house dress to actually just wear. Moving on. So I stayed with this girl and her family, and they live close to the Disney World in Paris. If I'm not getting that wrong, that is actually the east end of Paris. I can't really remember from way back 2018. I'm sorry, I'm geriatric. I forget things. Um, but I wanna sort of speak about two things that I did in Paris because I was there for a full month, so I did a lot of things. And I sort of have footage of more of it than other things. So I would like to speak about going to the Louvre, and also I want to speak about going to the Eiffel Tower. And it's very possible that this is going to be two videos because like I said, it was a month. First time I'm sort of giving commentary on a trip. And I have to add that I don't have too many pictures with myself in it because as you can see, my hair is not naturally straight. Okay, I do have to straighten it. And if you have naturally curly hair, you do know that after a while, the straightening really gets to your natural curls, and my ends had like started suffering and breaking. So I had to do a big chop, and as it is colloquially known now, where I literally had to chop my hair till it was this length, okay, and just let it regrow in a healthy way. So I wasn't really feeling my look. I didn't want to be in too many of the pictures, unfortunately, but I did get this one here of the Louvre when I was in the Louvre. Very generic sort of picture. There are some blocks that are sort of, I guess, on the outside. And what people do is they sort of stand on them, or they stand like far away enough from this pyramid thing, so that they can kind of pretend they're touching the top of the Louvre, the pyramid in the Louvre. So I did do that much. Just for the sake of knowledge, that is actually the official entrance to the Louvre. So typically, what you have to do is you have to queue on the outside. Like typically, there is a queue, at least in summer when it's very busy. So you have to queue on the outside, and you can buy tickets online, or you can actually buy tickets inside the Louvre itself. There are different passes for different people. Like if you're a tourist from an EU country, another EU country, you pay a particular rate. If you are a tourist like myself, I'm a Canadian citizen. I was studying in Canada, so I did pay international fees. And so you queue outside of the pyramid thing, and it can be quite a queue depending on when you go. I was in one spot, well, not in one spot, but I was in the line for at least 45 minutes. So, but I did buy my tickets online, so at least I didn't have that issue. And then so it's a 3-day tour, the full Louvre in its entirety, for somebody who, really wants to sort of take in each painting and have a certain amount of time to actually appreciate each one. It is, for all intents and purposes, a 3-day tour. So I did 2 of the 3 days. I don't think I didn't want to do the third day, but it's just that there was so much, I was doing so many other things, and I was also with my friend. So it wasn't really all about me parking in the Louvre, even though I was there for a month. But I did do 2 out of the 3 days. I would just like to point out that that was shortly after the Beyonce and Jay-Z, the Carter video was shot there. So, I was extra enthusiastic to go to the Louvre. I wasn't really sure which of the different attractions I would be prioritizing, but after I saw Beyonce on those stairs, I had to go to the Louvre myself. Um, so I don't think there was a specific order that I did the actual Louvre in. I get, well, there may be sort of a natural order to things, as there typically is in like typical museum type things. But I didn't do a guided tour. I just went and I, just walked around, and I looked at different things, and I took different pictures. I was by myself on one of the 2 days, and I was with Johanna, is her name. I hope she won't mind. Um, I was with her for the other day. So if I remember correctly, it sort of starts with like it's in chronological order. If I remember correctly, like they basically start with some ancient Egyptian artifacts, and then you move on to like the medieval type of paintings and sculptures and that sort of thing. And I never got to day 3, so I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. I don't know what is beyond like the medieval Renaissance type area. But there was some really, really interesting areas in the Louvre. Like, for example, I loved how they did, I think it was the Roman or ancient Greek um portion of the exhibit where you did have like a full area that was just dedicated to these magnificent white marble type um very well proportioned statues. And I did see a couple of ones that I had seen before, ones that I cared about, and um I just loved how they laid it out. Like they laid it out almost like you were walking through an ancient Roman or Greek ruins, where there was sort of like, you would have to descend a staircase, and there was, I don't want to say a quadrangle, but like um a sunken area that was sort of skirted with the statues, and you could have just moved around to different ones at your leisure and looked at what the significance of each one was. I would hope to find that on my iCloud somewhere, but there was actually a statue that was created just to sort of glorify and uh, sort of create a monument out of ladies' bums. So I really appreciated that, because you always wonder, like, from era to era, what do people find attractive? And I just found it interesting to know that there was a previous time in history where people saw, a bum as sort of a sign of beauty. And I was very much in awe looking at some of these statues. It was incredible to me that in this day and age, when we have every bit of technology that you can actually come up with, things that you can like, we have 3D printers, but somebody back then took a chisel and a piece of marble and created some of these magnificent pieces of work. I was actually completely in awe by that. And some of them are quite large as well, but even though they're large, they are in proportion. Like, you know how they say that Mount Rushmore, when you actually get closer to it, it's not really, the proportions aren't really there. And it's not like a human face as you would imagine it, as it looks from far away. But when you actually look carefully at some of these statues, you realize how accurate these things actually are. So I was in awe of that completely. Another thing that I actually loved was a painting called The Abduction of Helen. I simply cannot get over looking at that painting. I think it was by a guy called Guido. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that, but basically what it showed was sort of like Helen with a group of, I guess, servants or ladies in waiting, and then you sort of see, I guess, Alexander in the foreground with some soldiers, and in the back you sort of see like what I thought were warships. And I just found this painting so intriguing because it sort of brought up like a very existential sort of feel for me. They say that in sort of um every time, if you like, there's always one piece of work that stands out to everybody who sort of goes into the Louvre. And for me, that one just hit me more than all of the others. Like, I saw some incredible um paintings, I saw some incredible sculptures, as I just said. I spent like 10 minutes speaking about how in awe I was at the workmanship that went into some of those statues, and they continue to be preserved in almost perfect condition today. But um I was just captivated by this painting because it to me it just invoked sorts of very existential questions and feelings in me, you know? Because if you know the story of this lady who's like it you know it's a bit of myth as well, a lady whose face launched 1,000 ships. It sort of makes you wonder like what draws people together, you know, because when you think of, I'm not sure if it was Mark Anthony or Alexander, I'm sorry, but when you think of, you know, sort of these key figures in Rome, and you actually think of some of the things that they accomplished, you sort of ask yourself, like, is love such a powerful emotion that you have the ability of somebody who conquers lands, who commands armies, who rules over a territory, actually falling so deeply in love with one woman that he's willing to actually go to war with, if I remember correctly, even members of his family over you know, his love for a woman. So that really struck me in a way that none of the other paintings actually did, and it just made me think, you know. Something else that stood out to me, I got to see the painting of Marianne. So if you know anything about France and its history and the revolution, you do know that there was there's this famous painting of a woman called Marianne who, you know, is not really, you know, is sort of partially in the nude, so to speak. And you know, she's sort of holding a French flag and is basically towering above the men fighting below her. So I found that really, it sort of it also brought out emotions in me to just sort of, you know, imagine like basically how one woman and her actions and, you know, her appearance sort of remained a staple in a country's history for so many years. Like you do see obviously paintings of other like soldiers, of men, but you know the French are famous for sort of um I don't want to say idolizing, but definitely like creating a monument out of women's bodies. I found that touching as well. And I certainly did see this other painting that is in the video with Beyonce and Jay-Z. It is absolutely breathtaking to see in person because it's huge. I saw the Mona Lisa, that is before the activists started throwing tomato cans at it or whatever it was that they were doing. It's a lot smaller than I thought. And I you know, I didn't really get close enough to it to actually like feel something by looking at it. So I can't really think at this particular moment of any other particular pictures and sculptures that really jumped out as me as jumped out at me as things that I would remember 5 years down the line. But please stay tuned both to the channel and the end of of this video, if I haven't split it by now, where I would definitely be showing some pictures that I probably have saved of what I actually did see when I was within the Louvre.